I don't know why I took that exit. Maybe it was the fatigue from 12 hours on the road, or maybe it was the strange, hypnotic quality that highways develop past midnight when the white lines start to blur together. Whatever the reason, I veered off I-80 somewhere in western Nebraska, following a sign that promised gas and lodging, though I couldn't recall the town's name even minutes later. The access road narrowed immediately, and the familiar glow of highway lights faded behind me. My headlights carved a tunnel through absolute darkness. No street lamps, no distant farmhouses, nothing but an occasional reflective marker confirming I was still on pavement. The GPS struggled to locate me, the blue dot pulsing weakly before disappearing altogether. "Recalculating," it said, then fell silent. I'd been driving since Des Moines, pushing through to Denver for my sister's wedding. A last-minute assignment had delayed me, forcing this overnight journey across the emptiest stretch of the Midwest. Now, as my sedan crawled along this unnamed road, I began to regret not stopping earlier. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. No gas station materialized. No motel. Even the road signs had disappeared. Just as anxiety began creeping up my spine, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Relief washed over me. Another traveler meant civilization couldn't be far. I slowed, hoping they might pass and lead the way to whatever town lay ahead. But the vehicle, a large pickup truck, I could now make out, maintained its distance, matching my speed precisely. I accelerated slightly. The truck did too. I slowed again. So did the truck. My throat tightened. Coincidence, surely. This road was straight and narrow. Perhaps they were just being cautious. I turned up the radio to drown out my mounting unease, but static had replaced the classic rock station I'd been enjoying since Omaha. Another 5 minutes passed. The truck remained a perfect 30 yards behind me, never closing the gap, never falling back. It was deliberate. Controlled. I could make out nothing of the driver through my mirror, just the unusually bright headlights that seemed to fill my car despite their distance. My phone showed no service. The GPS remained dead. The radio produced nothing but static at any frequency. 40 minutes had now passed since the exit, with no sign of the promised town. "This is ridiculous," I muttered, deciding to turn around. There must have been another exit I'd missed in my fatigue. I slowed, looking for a spot wide enough to execute a 3-point turn. As my speed dropped below 25, the truck finally changed its behavior, closing the distance between us rapidly. Heart pounding, I accelerated instead. The truck surged forward, matching me. I pushed my sedan to 70, then 80, tires humming dangerously on the unfamiliar road. The truck kept pace effortlessly, its headlights now so close they completely washed out my mirror. Then, abruptly, a fork in the road appeared. With no time to consider, I wrenched the wheel right, taking the smaller of the two branches. The truck's headlights illuminated my car's interior for one terrifying moment, then swerved left, following the main road. I exhaled shakily, easing my foot off the gas. My hands trembled against the steering wheel as I navigated the increasingly serpentine route. Relief gradually replaced fear as the minutes passed without sign of pursuit. That's when I noticed the first house. It appeared suddenly around a bend, a small, white-clapboard structure set back from the road. No lights, no vehicles, but unmistakably a human dwelling. Soon another followed, then several more, spaced irregularly along the roadside. A community, though not quite a town. None showed any signs of life or light. Except for the last one. At the apparent end of the scattered development stood a larger 2-story home with a single illuminated window on the ground floor. My gas gauge hovered just above empty, and exhaustion clouded my judgment. Against my better instincts, I pulled into the gravel driveway. Before I could reconsider, the porch light flickered on. The front door opened, revealing a thin, elderly man in a cardigan. He didn't step outside, just stood in the doorway watching as I hesitated in my idling car. I lowered my window just enough to hear him say, "You took a wrong turn, didn't you?" His tone wasn't questioning. It was knowing. "I'm looking for the highway," I called back, keeping the engine running. I got off I-80 and can't seem to find my way back. A smile spread across his face, too wide, too practiced. No one finds this place by accident. Something cold settled in my stomach. I glanced at my fuel gauge again. The needle now rested directly on empty. Come inside, the man said. Phone's working. You can call for help. I hesitated, one foot on the gas pedal. Unless you prefer to wait for Harlan to circle back around, he added casually. That was his truck following you. He patrols the access road most nights. Brings us visitors when they make navigational errors. My mouth went dry. Who's US? The old man's smile didn't falter as he stepped backward into his house, pulling the door wider. The interior remained dark beyond the small pool of porch light. Just folks who appreciate company. It gets lonely out here. Through his front window, I caught movement, silhouettes shifting in the darkness. Multiple figures, standing perfectly still, now turning toward the window in unison. I threw the car into reverse, tires spitting gravel. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died completely. The old man's chuckle carried clearly through my partially open window. Told you. Empty tank. He gestured behind me. And here comes Harlan now. Headlights swept across my rearview mirror as the familiar truck rounded the bend, crawling toward us. Don't look so worried, the old man said, his voice suddenly closer. I jerked my head around to find him standing beside my car door, though I hadn't seen or heard him move. We're not monsters. We just get curious about the outside world. It's been so long since any of us has seen it. What do you want? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin and childlike. Nothing much. Just stories. Memories. Experiences. His pale hand settled on my door. We trade for them. Food. Shelter. Fuel. Trade memories? The truck pulled up behind me, blocking any escape route. Its headlights went dark, but the driver remained inside. You'd be surprised how much of yourself you can give away before you notice anything missing, the old man said softly. Most visitors stay just one night. They leave with a full tank and a few blank spots. Nothing they can't rationalize away. People are remarkably good at filling holes in their memories with comfortable explanations. The figures I'd glimpsed through the window now stood on the porch, 3 women and 2 men of varying ages, all watching me with the same hungry expression as the old man. Their eyes reflected the dim porch light like animals caught in a flashlight beam. How many visitors have you had? I managed to ask. The old man's smile widened further. Thousands over the years. Most don't remember us at all. Some remember fragments, enough to avoid this stretch of highway forever without knowing why. A rare few. He trailed off, studying me with newfound interest. A rare few come back. Something draws them. Empty places inside want to be filled, you see. I tried my ignition again. Nothing. One night, the old man said, his hand now resting on my shoulder through the open window. We'll feed you. Let you rest. Fix your car. And take just a small payment, a memory you'll never even miss. By morning you'll be back on the highway. And if I refuse? His expression didn't change, but the temperature seemed to drop several degrees. There's nowhere to go. No one knows you're here. Your phone can't reach the outside. And Harlan hasn't had a new face to himself in, quite some time. Behind me, the truck's door finally opened. I couldn't see the driver, just the sound of boots on gravel. One night, the old man repeated. One memory. A fair trade. My options had dwindled to none. The house door stood open, warm light spilling out. The figures on the porch had multiplied somehow. Where had the others come from? All with the same patient, hungry expressions. Which memory? I whispered. The old man's smile became almost gentle. We won't know until we start looking. Everyone has different treasures hidden away. His cold fingers squeezed my shoulder. But I promise, we'll be thorough in our search. The truck driver's footsteps drew closer behind me. I couldn't turn to look. Come inside, the old man said again. The night's only getting darker. I stepped out of my useless car on legs that barely supported me, the watchers on the porch parting to create a path to the open door. As I crossed the threshold, their hands brushed against me, light touches that left icy trails on my skin. Welcome, the old man whispered, following me inside. Now, tell me about your sister's wedding. The one you're driving to attend? I turned to him, confused. What wedding? I'm just on a road trip. Passing through. His smile grew impossibly wide. See? It's already begun. The door closed behind us. I don't know why I took that exit. Sometimes, when I try to remember the specifics of my trip across Nebraska last year, there's a strange gap in my recollection, a stretch of hours that refuses to solidify no matter how hard I concentrate. The only concrete detail is waking up at a gas station just off I-80, my tank mysteriously full, despite having no memory of stopping for fuel. Odder still is this recurring dream I've had ever since, an old man in a cardigan telling me he's kept something precious of mine. In the dream, I'm always driving back to find him, following an exit that never appears on any map. The strangest part? 3 times now, I've found myself inexplicably drawn to that same stretch of highway, driving aimlessly westward without conscious destination. Each time, I've stopped myself before reaching Nebraska, a nameless dread turning me back toward home. But the pull is getting stronger. And sometimes, when I check my GPS history, I find searches for routes I never programmed, all leading to the same unmapped location somewhere west of Omaha. I think this time, I might just follow it all the way there. After all, I seem to be missing something important, and somehow, I know exactly where to find it. The woman who slid into my backseat at 2:17 a.m. didn't look like someone who should be alone at this hour. Expensive coat, designer purse, the kind of haircut that costs more than my weekly take-home. But it was her eyes that caught my attention in the rearview, red-rimmed and darting, like she'd been crying or hadn't slept in days. Maybe both. Where to? I asked, meter already running. Tuesday nights, technically Wednesday mornings, were always slow. She'd be my third fare since midnight. Just drive, she said, voice surprisingly steady despite her appearance. North, along the river. I'll tell you when to stop. I pulled away from the curb, stealing another glance in the mirror. She stared fixedly out the window, clutching her purse with white-knuckled fingers. The interior light caught the diamond on her left hand, large enough that she really shouldn't be in my beat-up Toyota at this hour. Everything okay, ma'am? Standard question. 90% of late-night fares had a story: drunk, heartbroken, running to or from something. You learn to read people in this job. Fine. She didn't look at me. Just keep driving. We rode in silence past shuttered storefronts and empty parking lots. The city thinned as we headed north, streetlights growing farther apart until darkness pressed against the windows. The meter ticked steadily higher. After 20 minutes, she spoke again. Take the next right. The turn led us onto a narrow road I'd never driven before, unmarked and poorly maintained, cutting through dense woodland that lined this stretch of the river. My headlights caught the reflection of eyes among the trees, probably deer. I slowed, increasingly uneasy about where this fare was heading. Ma'am, this road doesn't seem to go anywhere. GPS isn't even showing. I know exactly where it goes, she interrupted, leaning forward. There's a clearing about 2 miles ahead. That's where we're going. I considered refusing, turning around. 10 years driving nights had taught me to trust my instincts. But something in her voice made me continue, a brittle quality that suggested she was holding herself together through sheer will. The road narrowed further, branches scraping against the car's sides. No other vehicles had passed this way recently. Weeds grew through cracks in the pavement. Pull over here, she suddenly commanded, pointing to a barely visible gap in the trees. I stopped, engine idling. The meter read $47.85. Through the windshield, I could make out nothing but darkness beyond the reach of my headlights. Wait here, she said, opening her door. Keep the meter running. I won't be long. Ma'am, I started to protest, but she was already stepping out, the expensive coat swallowing her slight frame. "If I'm not back in 20 minutes, you can leave." She placed 320s on the center console. "This should cover it." Before I could respond, she shut the door and walked into the tree line, the beam of a phone flashlight briefly illuminating her path before she disappeared from view. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel, debating whether to call this in. Nothing illegal had happened. She'd paid for a ride and tipped generously. Still, the situation felt wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The woods remained silent except for occasional rustling that could have been wind or wildlife. I tried the radio, but only static came through, not unusual this far from the city. At the 15-minute mark, I made a decision. Customer request or not, I wasn't comfortable waiting any longer in this isolated spot. I'd give her 5 more minutes, then leave. Just as I reached for my phone to note the time, a tapping sound came from the trunk. I froze, finger hovering over the screen. The sound came again, 3 distinct taps, unmistakably deliberate. My mind raced through possibilities. An animal had somehow gotten trapped when I wasn't looking. A branch had fallen onto the car. The cooling engine was making unusual noises. Then came a third series of taps, more insistent, followed by what sounded horribly like a muffled voice. "Hello?" I called out, voice cracking. No response except the continued tapping. I stepped out of the car, heart pounding. The night air felt suddenly thick, difficult to breathe. I moved slowly toward the trunk, keys clutched in my shaking hand. The tapping stopped. I stood at the rear of the car, uncertain. My taxi had a conventional trunk, not accessible from the interior. Whatever I was hearing couldn't be coming from inside. It was impossible. I pressed the key fob. The trunk unlocked with a soft click that seemed thunderous in the silence. I lifted the lid cautiously, prepared to slam it shut at the first sign of movement. Empty. Just my emergency kit, spare tire, and the usual detritus of daily work. Nothing that could explain the sound. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by embarrassment at my overactive imagination. I closed the trunk and turned back toward the driver's door. The woman stood directly in my path, barely 3 feet away. I stumbled backward, colliding with the car. She hadn't made a sound approaching, no footsteps on the gravel, no rustling through underbrush. Just suddenly there. "Jesus!" I gasped. "You scared me. I'm ready to go now," she said, her voice different somehow, flatter, devoid of the tension I'd heard earlier. She moved toward the back door. That's when I noticed she no longer carried her purse. And her expensive coat, which had been buttoned to her neck when she exited the car, now hung open, revealing a blouse underneath. A blouse with a dark, wet stain spreading across the front. "Are you hurt?" I asked, instinctively stepping toward her. She smiled, a strange, empty expression that never reached her eyes. "Take me back to the city. Same place you picked me up." I hesitated, looking from her face to the stain and back. In the dim light, I couldn't tell if it was water, mud, or something else. "Ma'am, if you're injured, I should take you to a hospital." "I'm not injured." She opened the back door herself, sliding in with fluid grace that contradicted the rigid, tense movements from earlier. The city. Now. Against every instinct, I returned to the driver's seat. In the rearview mirror, her face looked different, composed, almost serene compared to the anxious woman who'd entered my taxi nearly an hour before. I put the car in drive, carefully turning around on the narrow road. As we pulled away, I glanced in the mirror again and caught her staring not out the window but directly at me, her expression now calculating and cold. The drive back passed in suffocating silence. I tried making conversation twice, receiving only monosyllabic responses that discouraged further attempts. The meter continued running, though I suspected the payment issue had been settled with those 320s. Approaching the city limits, she finally spoke unprompted. "Have you ever wondered what it would be like to disappear completely?" Her voice had that strange flatness again. "To step out of your life and into someone else's?" I mumbled something noncommittal, focused on getting her out of my car as quickly as possible. "It's easier than people think," she continued, as if I'd expressed interest. "Humans are surprisingly interchangeable." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Where exactly am I taking you?" "Corner of Lakeview and 43rd, she said. "The high rise with the green awning." I nodded, accelerating slightly. 10 more minutes and this increasingly disturbing fare would be over. As we pulled up to the building, one of the most expensive condominiums in the city, she leaned forward. I could smell her perfume, something expensive that couldn't quite mask another odor underneath, metallic and organic. "One more thing," she said softly, almost at my ear. "You never picked me up tonight." Before I could respond, she pressed something into my hand. I looked down to find 5 $100 bills folded together. "But you worked a normal shift. Nothing unusual happened. You never drove to the river. You never saw me." Each sentence was delivered with quiet intensity. "If anyone asks, and they will ask, you'll say exactly that." She got out, closing the door with surprising gentleness. Through the window, I watched her punch a code into the building's security panel with practiced ease. The doorman nodded at her with familiar recognition as she passed. Only after she disappeared inside did I notice something on the floor of the back seat. A small leather wallet, expensive and feminine but not the purse she'd entered with. It must have fallen from her coat pocket. I should have run after her. I should have left it with the doorman. I should have called the police immediately. Instead, I picked it up with trembling fingers and opened it. The driver's license inside showed the woman who just exited my taxi, same high cheekbones, same expertly highlighted hair. But the name wasn't hers. I knew it wasn't hers because I recognized the face from local news stories that had been running all week. The missing socialite wife of a prominent hedge fund manager, last seen leaving a charity event 5 days ago. The woman in my taxi wasn't her. Close, remarkably, disturbingly close, but not her. Wrong eye color. Slightly different nose. Small differences I hadn't noticed in the dark car but obvious now, comparing the ID photo to the memory of the woman who just walked into the building where the missing woman lived. With growing horror, I recalled the stain on her blouse, the missing purse, her strange question about disappearing and becoming someone else. I reached for my phone to call 911, then froze as another thought struck me. The doorman had recognized her. Let her in without question. Which meant either I was catastrophically mistaken or... The security camera. Taxis have cameras. With shaking hands, I pulled up the night's footage on the vehicle's system. There I was, picking up fares throughout the evening. Then, at 2:17 a.m., the exterior camera clearly showed me stopping at the location where I'd met the woman. The door opened. Closed. I pulled away from the curb. But the back seat remained empty. I frantically checked the interior camera footage. Same result. Me driving, occasionally glancing in the rearview mirror and moving my lips as if conversing with someone. But no passenger. Heart pounding, I flipped through the wallet again, looking for anything I might have misunderstood. A receipt fell out, dated just 3 hours ago from a convenience store less than a mile from where I sat. The signature matched the name on the ID, but the handwriting was identical to that on the 320s the woman had given me, which still lay on my center console. My phone rang, startling me badly. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "I believe you have something of mine," said the now familiar flat voice. "I'd like it back." "Who are you?" I whispered. "Someone who needed a new life," she replied simply. "Someone who knows what you look like, where you work, and now, thanks to your taxi registration information, where you live." My blood ran cold. "Bring my wallet to the clearing. Tonight. Come alone." She paused. "And don't bother reviewing your security footage again. You'll only see what I want you to see." The call disconnected. I sat paralyzed, the wallet heavy in my hands. 5 minutes passed before I could bring myself to start the engine again. I don't know why I'm driving back toward the river. I know I shouldn't be. But the $500 burns in my pocket, and the wallet sits on the passenger seat, and the meter is still running. As I approach the unmarked turn, my headlights briefly illuminate a figure standing at the roadside, a man in disheveled business attire, arm outstretched in the universal gesture of hailing a taxi. He looks exhausted, desperate for a ride. For a moment, I consider driving past. But it's late, I'm already here, and something about his expression tugs at my professional instincts. I pull over and roll down the window. "Where to?" I ask, watching in the rearview mirror as he settles into the back seat. "Just drive," he says, voice cracking with strain. "Along the river. I'll tell you when to stop." The meter starts running. I pull away from the curb, catching a glimpse of his face in the mirror, handsome, if haggard, with an expensive watch glinting on his wrist. The husband, I realize with dawning horror. The missing woman's husband. He doesn't recognize me. Has no reason to. But I recognize the hollow desperation in his eyes, the same look the woman wore when this nightmare began. "Everything okay, sir?" I ask, already knowing the answer, already suspecting where we're headed. "Fine," he says, not meeting my eyes. "Just keep driving." And so I do, heading north along the river once more, the meter ticking steadily higher, wondering which of us won't be coming back. The first rule of long-haul driving is simple: never pick up hitchhikers. 11 years on the road had taught me that much. But rules have a way of bending at 3 a.m. on a stretch of highway so remote the radio picks up nothing but static, when you haven't spoken to another human in 14 hours. So when my headlights caught the figure on the roadside, thumb extended, face shadowed beneath a hood, I found myself easing off the accelerator. The rational part of my brain screamed warnings as I pulled onto the shoulder 50 yards ahead, hazards blinking in the darkness. I watched in the side mirror as the figure approached. Female, I could tell now. Young, maybe mid-20s. Her walk was steady, purposeful. Not drunk. Not obviously unstable. Just someone stuck in the middle of nowhere, Montana, in the dead of night. The passenger door opened, releasing the dome light into the darkness. "Thanks for stopping," she said, sliding into the seat beside me. Close up, I could see her face properly. Unremarkable but pleasant, brown hair pulled back, clothes practical for travel. Nothing about her appearance raised immediate alarm bells. Not many people would these days. "Where you headed?" I asked, pulling back onto the empty highway. "West," she said. "Far as you're going?" I nodded. Vague, but not uncommon for hitchhikers. My route would take me through to Spokane by morning. "I can get you to Washington." "Perfect." She settled against the door, a small backpack clutched in her lap. No larger luggage. Another detail that should have registered as unusual, but somehow didn't in the moment. We drove in silence for several miles, the rhythm of the road and the hum of tires creating a cocoon of white noise. I kept the radio off. Sometimes conversation happened with passengers, sometimes it didn't. I'd learned not to force it. "Do you pick up many hitchhikers?" she finally asked, still gazing out the window. "Almost never," I admitted. "You're the first in probably 3 years." She turned to look at me then. "Why me?" The question caught me off guard, direct in a way most hitchhiker small talk isn't. "I don't know. Something just said stop." A smile flickered across her face. "Intuition's an interesting thing." She shifted, angling toward me. "What's your name?" "David," I said, keeping my eyes on the road. "I'm Sarah," she replied. Then, after a pause, "That's not true. But it's what you can call me." My hands tightened on the wheel. The admission was oddly forthright. Most hitchhikers maintain their pretenses, even obvious ones. "Okay, Sarah who's not Sarah," I said, forcing lightness into my tone. "What brings you out to the middle of nowhere at this hour?" "I'm running from something," she said simply. The bluntness of her statement sent a chill down my spine. In the green glow of the dashboard lights, her expression remained neutral, almost eerily calm. "Most hitchhikers are," I replied cautiously. "What about you, David?" She tilted her head. "What are you running from?" "I'm not," I'm a delivery driver. This is my job. She made a soft, skeptical sound. Nobody chooses overnight long hauls unless they're avoiding something. Or someone. I didn't answer. The highway stretched endlessly before us, empty in both directions. The nearest town was over 60 miles behind us, the next one at least 80 ahead. We were completely alone in a metal box traveling at 70 miles per hour through absolute darkness. You have kind eyes, she said abruptly. That's why I chose your truck. The phrasing, not why I flagged you down but why I chose your truck, raised the hairs on my arms. How long were you waiting out there? I asked. A while, she said vaguely. Long enough to be selective. Not many vehicles come through here this time of night. 3, she said. A semi, a pickup with 2 men and you. She'd been keeping count. Watching, evaluating. I tried to focus on the road, but my peripheral vision was hyper-aware of her every movement. Where are you coming from? I asked, trying to steer the conversation toward normal hitchhiker territory. A place I shouldn't have been, she answered. With someone I shouldn't have trusted. Another deliberate non-answer. I reached for the radio, suddenly needing to fill the silence, but her hand shot out with surprising speed, catching my wrist. Don't, she said. Her fingers were ice cold against my skin. I like being able to hear you breathe. She released me immediately, returning her hand to her lap as if nothing had happened. I forced myself to keep my breathing even, though my heart had begun hammering against my ribs. There's water in that compartment if you're thirsty, I said, gesturing to the center console, desperate to normalize the interaction. I'm not thirsty. She continued staring at me. You're sweating, David. Are you nervous? I was. Every instinct was now screaming that I'd made a terrible mistake. But we were miles from anywhere, hurtling through darkness at highway speeds. My options were limited. Just warm in here, I lied, turning up the AC even though the cabin was already cool. Do you believe people can sense things about each other? She asked, shifting topics with jarring suddenness. Pick up on intentions? Sometimes, I admitted. What are you sensing about me right now? The question hung between us. I chose my words carefully. That there's a lot you're not saying. She smiled at that, a genuine smile that momentarily transformed her face from unsettling to almost beautiful. That's fair. I sense things about you too. Like what? That you've done this before. Done what? Picked up hitchhikers? No. She shook her head slowly. This exact scenario. Me specifically. My foot twitched involuntarily on the accelerator. That's not possible. I've never seen you before. Not me exactly, she conceded. But someone like me. Someone in my situation. I swallowed hard. And what situation is that? Her eyes never left my face. I think you already know. A sign flashed past, rest area 2 miles. A potential escape, or at least a place with possible witnesses. I need coffee, I announced, signaling for the exit. And to stretch my legs? She made no objection, just continued watching me with that calm, steady gaze. The rest area was deserted when we pulled in, its sad collection of vending machines and bathrooms illuminated by flickering fluorescence. No other vehicles in sight. Not even a maintenance truck. My heart sank. I'll be right back, I said, killing the engine. Need anything from inside? I'll come with you, she replied, reaching for her door handle. Suit yourself. I tried to sound casual as I pocketed my keys and phone. We walked side by side toward the cinderblock building. My mind raced through options. I could call 911, but what would I say? I picked up a hitchhiker who's saying weird things? I hadn't seen a cop car in over 200 miles. Help would be at least an hour away, likely more. You're planning something, she said conversationally as we approached the building. I can practically hear you thinking. I said nothing, pushing open the door to the men's restroom. I'll meet you back at the truck. No, you won't, she replied with certainty. You'll wait in there until you think I've given up and left. Or you'll call someone. But there's no cell service here. I checked when we pulled in. And I'm very patient, David. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across her face. For the first time, I noticed a thin scar running along her hairline, partially hidden by her hood. What do you want from me? I finally asked. A ride, she said simply. Just like I told you. Why do I feel like there's more to it than that? She sighed, suddenly looking very tired. Because you're smart. And cautious. You have to be, in your line of work. A chill ran through me. What do you mean, my line of work? I told you, I'm a delivery driver. Is that what you're calling it now? She reached for her backpack zipper, slowly pulling it open. We should be honest with each other, David. Or whatever your real name is. I backed away as she reached into the bag, my body tensing for fight or flight. What she withdrew wasn't a weapon, but a small leather wallet. She flipped it open to reveal a driver's license, holding it up for me to see. My stomach dropped. The photo wasn't of her, but I recognized the face instantly. It had been on the news for the past week. Jessica Mercer, 24, last seen at a gas station in Billings. Where did you get that? My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Where do you think? She tucked the wallet back into her bag. The same place I got these. She pushed up her sleeve to reveal a series of bruises encircling her wrist. And this. She tilted her head to indicate the scar along her hairline. I don't understand, I said, though a terrible understanding was beginning to form. I think you do, she countered. You just don't want to admit you've been caught. Caught? I repeated numbly. It was clever, parking so far ahead. Making me walk to you. Checking me out from a distance. Her voice remained calm, methodical. Standard procedure, right? Make sure your target is alone. No witnesses. No one close enough to see her get into your vehicle. You've got this all wrong. I protested, real fear gripping me now. I was just trying to help. The others said the same thing. She cut in. They were just trying to help too. Others? What others? The other drivers. The other men who stopped for women alone in the middle of nowhere. Her eyes hardened. The ones who worked for him. My confusion must have shown on my face because she laughed, a short, humorless sound. You really don't know what I'm talking about, do you? She studied me with new intensity. You're not one of them. One of who? I have no idea what's happening right now. She hesitated, then reached into her bag again, this time removing a small, worn photograph. She handed it to me wordlessly. It showed 3 young women smiling at the camera, arms linked. I recognized her immediately, younger, happier, without the scar or the wariness in her eyes. Next to her stood Jessica Mercer, whose wallet she now carried. The third woman I didn't recognize. 3 of us left Billings together last month. She said quietly. Only I'm still free. Free? I echoed. He works through a network. Professional drivers, mostly. They spot women traveling alone, pick them up, deliver them. Transport logistics, you could call it. Her voice turned bitter. Human trafficking with a corporate structure. I handed the photo back, my hand shaking slightly. And you thought I was part of this network? I had to be sure. For the first time, a crack appeared in her composed facade. I've been trying to get back to civilization without being spotted by the right people. Or wrong people, I guess. Why not go to the police? Her laugh was hollow. With what? A story about a trafficking ring that involves long-haul drivers? No evidence except bruises that could have come from anywhere? A wallet I technically stole. She shook her head. Besides, I tried. The sheriff in the last town held me for questioning. 3 hours later, 2 men I'd never seen before showed up with paperwork saying they were federal agents. They weren't. The buzzing fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting the grimy bathroom in alternating brightness and shadow. Outside, the vast Montana night waited, empty in all directions. I don't know if I believe you, I said honestly. I don't know if I believe you either, she replied. But we're both stuck here, aren't we? You can't leave me without confirming your suspicions, and I can't let you drive away if there's any chance you're connected to them. So what do we do? She considered this, chewing her lower lip. You have a delivery schedule to maintain, right? People expecting you at certain checkpoints? I nodded. Then we stick to it. You give me a ride to Spokane like you offered. I keep my eyes open. You do the same. She zipped her bag closed. If you're who you say you are, no harm done. If I'm who I say I am, you've helped someone who desperately needs it. And if either of us is telling the truth? I asked. Something flashed in her eyes, something cold and calculating that made me wonder if the vulnerability she'd just shown had been as carefully constructed as everything else about her. Then I guess we find out who's better at this game, she said softly. We walked back to the truck in silence, the weight of mutual suspicion hanging between us. As I started the engine, she settled back into the passenger seat, her backpack clutched protectively in her lap. One more thing, she said as we pulled back onto the empty highway. I took something while you were sleeping earlier. I frowned, confused. I wasn't sleeping. I just picked you up 30 minutes ago. She reached into her jacket pocket and extracted a small plastic card, my commercial driver's license. I instinctively patted my pocket where my wallet should have been, finding it empty. You dropped this at the last rest area, she said, examining the ID closely. About 200 miles back. I noticed when I was checking the vehicles in the lot. She looked up, meeting my eyes. Funny coincidence running into you again, isn't it? Almost like you circled back, looking for me. Cold sweat broke out across my forehead. I had stopped at a rest area earlier, taken a 15-minute nap in the cab. I had no memory of seeing her there, but I'd been exhausted, barely aware of my surroundings. I've never seen you before tonight. I insisted, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Your license says your name is Michael, not David. She continued as if I hadn't spoken. And there's a phone number written on the back that doesn't match the one on your phone when I checked it at the rest stop. She held the license up to the green dashboard light. Who's the number for, Michael? Your dispatcher? Your handler? The people you deliver to? I'm a legitimate driver, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. I use a different name on the road. Lots of us do. Safety measure. A safety measure, she repeated skeptically. Or operational security? The empty highway stretched before us, a black ribbon cutting through darker plains. The next town was still over an hour away. Just the two of us, alone in the cab, each convinced the other was hiding something terrible. Maybe we both were. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. We stop at the next gas station. While I'm filling up, you go inside, use their phone, call whoever you need to. I'll wait. If you come back out, we continue to Spokane. If you don't, I'll understand. She studied me for a long moment. And if there's someone waiting at the next gas station? Another driver who just happens to be taking a break at the same time? There won't be. You sound very certain. I took a deep breath. Because I really am just a driver. Whatever you're caught up in, whatever you're running from, it has nothing to do with me. She was silent for several miles after that, both of us locked in our private calculations. Finally, she nodded. Okay. Next gas station. We drove on through the night, the silence between us alive with unspoken accusations. Eventually, lights appeared on the horizon, a small, 24-hour truck stop illuminating the darkness like a solitary lighthouse. As I pulled in beside the pumps, she gathered her backpack, her movements deliberate and controlled. I'll be watching from inside, she said. If you make any calls, if you signal anyone. I won't. I cut her off. Just go. She hesitated, then pushed open the door and slipped out into the night. I watched her walk toward the fluorescent-lit convenience store, her shoulders hunched defensively. Only when she disappeared inside did I exhale, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone. I had a decision to make. Call the police and report her, a potentially unstable woman with stolen ID and paranoid accusations? Or call my actual dispatcher and continue the route as if nothing had happened? I glanced toward the store. Through the windows, I could see her talking to the clerk, gesturing emphatically. The clerk, an older man, was shaking his head, looking concerned. The fuel pump clicked off. I replaced the nozzle and closed my gas cap, still watching the store. The woman, Sarah or whatever her real name was, had moved away from the counter now, standing with her back to the refrigerated section, eyes locked on my truck. My phone buzzed in my hand, a text from an unknown number. Don't trust her. Check your cargo. I froze, staring at the message. Then, slowly, I walked around to the back of my truck. The seal on the cargo door was broken, a clean cut I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been looking for it. With trembling fingers, I unlocked the door and swung it open just enough to peer inside. Among the legitimate freight, furniture bound for a warehouse in Spokane, was a shipping container that shouldn't have been there. A shipping container with air holes drilled in its side. From inside the store, the woman watched me intently, phone pressed to her ear. I closed the cargo door, locked it, and got back in the driver's seat. Through the windshield, our eyes met across the distance. She wasn't who she said she was. I wasn't who I said I was. And now we both knew it. I started the engine. She stepped out of the store. The night stretched before us, full of terrible possibilities. And somewhere between Montana and Washington, one of us would make a fatal mistake. The headlights of the car behind me had been steady for 43 minutes. I knew because I'd been checking the clock obsessively since I first noticed them on that empty stretch of Highway 16. It was 2:17 a.m. now. The roads between Hazleton and Prince George were never busy, especially midweek in October, but to have the same vehicle maintain such a consistent distance for so long was unusual. I adjusted my rearview mirror for the 100th time. The lights remained, hanging back exactly as they had been, not close enough to tailgate, not far enough to disappear around bends. Just present. Persistent. My phone had lost signal about 20 minutes back. The radio cycled through static with occasional fragments of late-night talk shows cutting through the white noise. I turned it off, preferring the silence and the low hum of tires on asphalt. "It's nothing," I said aloud to the empty passenger seat. "Just someone heading the same direction." But Highway 16 had earned its nickname for a reason. The Highway of Tears. Dozens of women had disappeared along this route over the decades. Mainly indigenous women, mainly forgotten by everyone except their families and the local communities. I wasn't indigenous, but I was alone. Female. Vulnerable. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The headlights adjusted accordingly, maintaining their distance. So it wasn't just someone on cruise control, half asleep at the wheel. They were watching me. My hand inched toward my phone even though I knew there was no signal. Force of habit. The blue glow illuminated my face as I checked again. No bars. I dropped it back into the cup holder and tightened my grip on the steering wheel. The rational part of my brain offered explanations, a careful driver, someone nervous about wildlife on the road, maybe even a plainclothes police officer. But rationality has little power at 2 a.m. on a deserted highway with persistent headlights behind you and nowhere to turn off. I noticed a sign for a rest area coming up in 5 kilometers. My bladder didn't need the stop, but my nerves did. If they followed me in, I'd have confirmation of my fears. If they continued on, I could wait it out, maybe call someone when signal returned. I flicked on my turn signal well in advance. The car behind me did the same. My heart slammed against my ribs. I canceled my signal, continuing straight. The other car's turn signal stopped too. "Fuck," I whispered. This was no coincidence. I accelerated hard, pushing my old Honda to speeds it rarely reached. The headlights grew smaller in my mirror, and for a moment, relief flooded through me. Then, like something out of a nightmare, they grew larger again. Rapidly. The high beams flicked on, flooding my car with harsh light, forcing me to adjust my mirrors. I couldn't see anything behind me now except blinding whiteness. The highway stretched empty ahead, no other cars, no turnoffs, No police stations or gas stations or any sign of civilization in sight. That's when the flashing blue and red lights erupted from behind the high beams. Police. Just police. The fear drained from me so quickly I felt lightheaded. I eased onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under my tires. The police car stopped behind me, high beams still blinding, silhouetting a figure approaching my window. I hit the button to roll down my window, fumbling in the glove compartment for my registration. License and registration, please. The voice was flat, professional. I squinted up but could only make out a dark shape against the headlights. Of course, officer. May I ask why you've been following me for so long? You scared me half to death. The silhouette didn't move. You're on Highway 16 at 2 a.m. I'd have thought you'd be grateful for the company. Something in the tone made my skin crawl. I handed over my license and registration without looking up. The figure took them, studied them with a small flashlight. Diane Lambert. Heading to Vancouver. He read my information aloud. Not a question. Yes, sir. I have a job interview tomorrow afternoon. I wanted to get a head start. Long drive to do alone. Again, not a question. These roads aren't safe for a woman by herself. I'm aware of the highway's reputation, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's why your following me was particularly frightening. He handed back my documents, then leaned down. For the first time, I could see his face. Youngish. Unremarkable. A face you'd forget as soon as you looked away. He wore a uniform, but something seemed off about it. No name tag. The patch on the shoulder didn't look quite right, though I couldn't place why. We've had reports of a stolen Honda matching this description, he said. Mind if I check your trunk? I hesitated. Don't you need probable cause or something? His smile didn't reach his eyes. That's in the States, miss. And this is a remote highway in the middle of the night. I'm just trying to do my job and get home like everyone else. I reluctantly popped the trunk. He walked around to the back of my car. I heard it open, heard him moving things around. My suitcase. My emergency kit. The spare tire. Everything in me screamed to drive away. But you don't run from police. That's how people get shot. Or maybe he wasn't police at all, and that would be worse. I reached for my phone again, still no signal. I turned on the voice recorder app anyway, slipped the phone under my thigh. He returned to my window. All looks in order. Sorry for the inconvenience. That's fine. I wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. I'll escort you to the next town, he said. For safety. Before I could respond, he walked back to his vehicle. I sat there, engine idling, wondering what to do. If he was legitimate, refusing would seem suspicious. If he wasn't, I had no good options. I pulled back onto the highway, and sure enough, he followed. Exactly as before. Not too close, not too far. The next town was still 40 minutes away. 20 minutes later, my phone vibrated against my leg. Signal. 1 bar, flickering in and out. I glanced in my rearview. He was still there. I needed to call someone, but who? It was nearly 3 a.m. And what would I even say? Help, I'm being followed by someone who might be a police officer? That's when I noticed. The cruiser behind me had no light bar on top. Every police car I'd ever seen had one. Even unmarked cars revealed them when the lights went on. His red and blue lights had come from inside the car. With trembling fingers, I dialed 911 as discreetly as possible. The call connected, then dropped. 1 bar wasn't enough. I tried again, and by some miracle, a voice answered. 911, what's your emergency? I'm on Highway 16. I whispered, being followed by someone claiming to be police. He pulled me over, but his car has no light bar, and his uniform seemed wrong. Ma'am, can you describe? The call cut out. Signal lost. I nearly screamed in frustration. The police car was still behind me, maintaining that same measured distance. I had maybe 20 minutes until we reached the next town. 20 minutes to decide what to do. That's when I remembered. At the upcoming junction, the highway split. One fork continued to Prince George, the other cuts south. There was a 24-hour truck stop at the junction. People. Witnesses. When the split came into view, I made no signal, giving no warning when I veered onto the exit ramp at the last possible moment. Tires squealed as I took the turn too fast. In my mirror, I saw the cruiser overshoot the exit, unable to follow. The truck stop's lights were like a beacon. I screeched into the parking lot, abandoned my car near the entrance, and rushed inside. The sleepy cashier looked up in alarm as I burst through the door. "I need to use your phone," I gasped. Emergency. Within half an hour, real police had arrived. I gave my statement, described the man, the car. They were concerned, took it seriously. One officer stayed with me while I called my sister to come get me. I couldn't face that highway again. 2 days later, I got a call from the RCMP. They'd found an abandoned police cruiser stolen from a small detachment hundreds of kilometers away. Inside were fake IDs, duct tape, rope, and a collection of driver's licenses. All women, all roughly my age and appearance. They never found the man. Sometimes I still drive, but never alone, never at night. And I've installed a dashcam that records everything in front and behind. Because the worst part wasn't the terror of that night. It was realizing afterward that he knew my name. He knew where I was going. Which means he's still out there, with my information. Waiting. And sometimes, when I check my rearview mirror, I still see headlights that seem to hold their distance just a little too perfectly. Thanks so much for watching. I can't express enough how much your support means. The likes, the comments, it all really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I always take the time to read them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time.